Ladies and gentlemen, this is John Rare. Tonight we have a special guest. He is the king of all wrestling media himself, Gene Jackson. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great, John. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Feels like a very long day for me, but hey, business is business.
I hear you, man.
So, usually on this broadcast we have deathmatch workers, and we usually tell bloody tales of, crazy events from Carnage Cups and random shows. But you've been deemed sometimes the Jim Jones of softcore. So I want to dig into your mind as you dig into mine of our different realms that we have shared through the years here in the pro wrestling industry. So for the fans that don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, I've been in the business since '97. Started out as a wrestled for several years. Kind of had to dip out of the business for a little while. Came back as a manager. I've wrestled, I've managed, I've done commentary, I've promoted, I've refereed a handful of times. I've done a little bit of everything in wrestling. This is a conversation I'm excited to have. This is a conversation that I'd have been happy to have, even if we weren't recording it, just because, a lot of people, I played the role, and forgive me, I lose track of the numbers of the Carnage Cup, but the Carnage Cup in Jasper, Tennessee, I came there playing the deathmatch guy, and ushered in the softcore division, for lack of a better word, and the concept of the softcore title and softcore cup and all that. And I've had a lot of people, message me who went back and saw the DVD and said, "Oh yeah, those promos were great," and you had so much enthusiasm. And I was like, well, it's because there was an element of truth to those promos. I'm not going to say I hate deathmatch wrestling, and I certainly respect it, but I wouldn't call myself a fan of it either. But that's why I think the conversation will get interesting, because this is your show. We're gonna do this the way you do it. But I think it'd be kind of interesting, if I'll kind of tell you what led me, my introduction to deathmatch wrestling, kind of what got me there, and then we kind of talk about how you got there, and then we'll kind of work our way through it of our opinions and differing of opinions, and how my opinion has evolved over time, and I think it'll be an interesting journey for people to listen to, because there's going to be people on both sides of this coin that listen to the show. So most people are going to be deathmatch fans or deathmatch wrestlers, but there's going to be a few people who are going to listen in who might, like me, be very interested to learn kind of the perspective of a deathmatch wrestler, and kind of what brought you there, and how you get in the zone to get yourself to do these things that you guys do.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a change of culture from where I started. I was just a jobber out there on the Alabama scene, Mississippi and Georgia, but I was just a jobber. And I came from backyard, which I did crazy stuff in the backyard, but once I moved to pro, I didn't do no death matches until I met Kevin Brandon in roughly, I think 2009, I believe, is when I did my first match with him. So, yeah, my first death match, took years after, my initial training and, being on the scene, just jobbing to people, which I jobbed to some really cool people before, so I can't complain about that. Like Bull Buchanan, Buff Bagwell, which, for the earlier part of my career, I always said the biggest compliment of my career came from Buff Bagwell. So, I enjoyed that. So, yeah, it was a different culture whenever I started doing the death matches.
This might be an interesting point to this too. Was your first death match, you said 2009, was that the Carnage Cup that was in Coleman at the Armory?
No, that was actually my second death match. Like my first death match, it was a little bit less known because it was a smaller show, but it was IWA Deep South Southern Discomfort. It was me, Phil Macchio, Cornerstone, and Dusty McWilliams. And, this was already, it was technically like my third show that I was supposed to have been on for IWA Deep South, but, I I've told this story before. I didn't get to wrestle at Carnage Cup 5. I turned down the booking for Carnage Cup 6 because I was already booked for Wrestle Birmingham that night. So I debuted at this show. So I decided to, hey, I'm going to go balls out. It's a death match. It's stuff that I've kind of used to from the backyard. So, you know, we went out there. We used bulbs. The final spot, I got hit in the head with razor wire, and it got stuck around my head. So literally they had to pin me and get me out of the ring. And I'm pretty sure you know Johnny Rage.
Yeah.
You know, I spent time with him before I ever did death matches, and he's looking at me in the back like, what the hell are you doing?
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, because the very first death match I ever saw in person was that infamous Carnage Cup in, I guess I can't say in, one in Coleman's the one that got shut down, but it's the one that I think you would agree put you on the map in the deathmatch world, you know, with the first match with Spider, the spot with the box cutter and all that. And that was the very first deathmatch show I'd ever seen in person. But to back up from that, before I got into business, I was big into tape trading. And so I did a lot of wrestling tape trading. And so I remember looking in the magazines, PWI and things like that, and you've seen these deathmatch videos, and I think Feinstein was selling all the way back then. You know, had Cactus Jack, Terry Funk, Tracy Smothers, and Eddie Gilbert, and all these guys over in Japan doing these death matches, and you'd read the descriptions, and you know, it'd say flaming barbed wire, broken glass, blah, blah, blah. And so I was fascinated by that, and so I ordered those tapes, and like I say, before I was in the business, I'm sitting and watching them, and I'm just like, man, I can't, like, you could, you know, as a fan, you could watch wrestling, you could kind of see through some things, and you could kind of, even before you trained, you, like, okay, well, I kind of see how they're doing that, and all right, that makes sense, you know, I can see how they're not hurting themselves. But I'd watch these deathmatch wrestling, and I'd be like, how are you not hurting? Like, how do you not get hurt with this shit? What's the trick? What's the secret, you know? And, of course, later on, I find out there is no secret. You got to be able to take it, or you know. I mean, there's some things that keep people from literally dying, but for the most part, there's not a lot of art to it. It's just you're either willing to take it or you're not. And so, like I say, I watched a ton of DVDs and tapes over the years. The very first time I got to see a death match live was at that Carnage Cup in Coleman. And of course, you know, it was a very long show. I think it even went over into the next day, and I had to work, so I ended up not getting to stay for the whole show. We left a little bit early, and I didn't get to see the follow-up. Or maybe it was all in one night. I don't remember. I just know the thing that stood out to me the most about that show is me and my wife are sitting out there, and they break the first light tube, and everybody's like, whoa. And fast forward 3.5 hours later, when they've broken the 300th light tube. I mean, some of those matches later in the card, like with Neil Diamond Cutter, was just piles of light tubes. Like, there was just so many light tubes. And of course, Neil Diamond Cutter looked like he'd been drugged through a razor blade factory by the end of that match. And by the end of it, I was just like, man, how many light tubes can we break? Like, you know, I don't know. Like, I was kind of over it, but like, that was also not only the first deathmatch show we ever went to, but it was the first show of Kevin's we'd ever gone to live. Again, seen a lot of DVDs. So me and my wife are sitting there, and in about the second or third match, they're going through, you know, light tubes and barbed wire, and there's a whole row of guys. There's one guy right in the middle who's just losing his shit. I mean, just absolutely going. Nudge my wife, and I go, hey, you know who that guy is? And she's like, who? And I'm like, that's the promoter. She's like, what? I'm like, that's the promoter. I'm like, that's why he does it. I'm like, he loves it. I'm like, and I respect that. I mean, you know, most guys run wrestling, they freaking hate it. I'm like, he's over having the time of his, you know, freaking life out there. So, you know, that was my first taste of deathmatch wrestling was that night. And man, I mean, you know, you were part of a lot of the crazy stuff, but you know, you stabbed Spider with that box cutter, and of course, that's a moment that's lived in infamy ever since. It's one of those talked about things. But I think if you ask Spider right now, what was the most painful thing that happened to him that night? I don't think it was the box cutter. I think it was the sidewalk slam off the top of the Coke machine that slammed against the concrete floor, I'm guessing was probably the most brutal thing he took that night. You've talked to him more about it than I have, I'm sure. Do you remember what his take was going out of that?
Yeah, like, I know longevity-wise, it was that, because, you know, when he hit his head, he personally told me that he didn't remember walking to the back, because, like, when you watch the video, I technically don't even pin him for a 3, because, you know, he's sitting there struggling, moving the whole time. But, you know, the ref went ahead and called it because that was the go-home in the first place. But, you know, he was actually supposed to have been in what they called the Clusterfuck Battle Royal. He was supposed to have went from that match to the Clusterfuck and win the Battle Royal. But as you know, he was in no condition to do anything else.
No, absolutely not. Where we were sitting, we were about 6 or 8 feet away from where that spot happened, and you could hear the thud of his head hitting the floor. And to me, the two being a wrestler and just a fucking person. How much cussing are we doing here? Are we
it's uncensored.
Okay. So the sidewalk slam off the Coke machine. And the superplex, Danny Havoc gave Matt Tremont onto the shopping cart. To this day, 2 of the most brutal things I've ever seen done on a wrestling show, deathmatch or not. I mean, I don't know if everybody understands just how stiff a shopping cart is, or how stiff a superplex from the top rope is, but those are 2 things that do not need to go together, and to this day, I don't know how Matt Tremont wasn't crippled after that.
Yeah, no, like, I think this was like, or, you know, that's what, 2011, it's been forever ago, and, like, the fans did a thing, like, who was the MVP for the night, and I think they said, like, me and Tremont tied, which was funny, because that was me and Tremont's first, Carnage Cup, and I want to say that was both of our first deathmatch tournaments. So you know what Tremont's went on to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you know, for me just to have been considered a VIP with him on the same night, that was a hell of a, you know, compliment for me at that time. Sorry for the interruption there, people, but Tremont has went on to do great things. I consider him the greatest American deathmatch worker, period. So, Carnage Cup 7 was definitely a hellacious night.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've been to a few since then, but that one really stands out to me as one of the and it may just be because it was my first one, but I don't know, but like I say, it's one of the some of the most brutal stuff I've seen. I've seen more sick, as far as like bloody and things like that, but as far as just like hard to watch, just knowing how rough of a bump it was, those were 2 of the toughest.
Now, was you at Carnage Cup 8 when Tremont and Spider came off of the 18-wheeler?
I was not. I've seen the DVD on a few different occasions. I wish I'd have been there to see that live, but holy cow, yeah, that's crazy.
No, see, I wasn't there live. I actually, after my match with Spider at the Saw 2 match, you know, I hurt my back during that match pretty damn bad, and you know, that was already coming after my broken leg. You know, just around probably about a year prior to that, but I was in so much pain, I left after our match, so I had to miss it as well. But yeah, I've watched it a million times, and that's one bump Kevin could not pay me to do.
I can believe it, man. Yeah, the fact that Tremont and I are still able to walk after some of the bumps they've taken is pretty amazing.
I know people always consider me like one of the most reckless, and you know, hey, I'll go out there and do whatever, and that's the whole do whatever part is the falsest statement you'll ever hear in your life. Like, I've turned down, you know, so many stupid spots because I see a difference between stupid, crazy, and taking care of my opponent. You know, if they want me to, like this, to this day, I still say the stab spot wasn't as bad as, you know, people let it on to be. Like, you know, he was good before he left the building that night with the stab spot. There was other problems that he had because of that match that was worse than the stab.
Right. I guess it was just because it was just something that nobody had ever done something that blatant before. It was just shocking. I just remember sitting there watching it, like, you pull out the box cutter. It's like, okay, he's going to cut him off. He's going, oh my God, he just stabbed him. Wow. still, at the end of the day, you're the guy that just outright stabbed the guy. I mean, that's kind of what you're most known for, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's funny is, like, Kevin just sent me a thing about Jim Cornette talking about that spot, and I was just like, if Jim Cornette's going to talk about it, I'm just going to take it as a, hey, I've made it.
Exactly. So, okay, so you brought up, and I've been friends with Kevin for a long time, and it's really something I've never really got into with him and asked, but I've always been kind of curious about that. So, like, so guys come up with concepts for spots, match concepps, crazy ideas, and so they pitch these things to you beforehand. So what's the, you said you're not up for anything, a lot of people saying that, oh yeah, rare reduced, whatever. What's the craziest thing that you've been pitched where you were just like, no, we're not doing that, that's crazy? That was shot.
Rock salt in a shotgun. So yeah, that was one I had to turn down.
I did hear about that was a concept that was out there, and I didn't know how far it made it, if it actually got pitched, or if maybe it was decided, beforehand, hey, let's not do that. So that, but I had heard that was being pitched, and I was like, I'm not going to be at that show. Like, I don't want to have to get subpoenaed after that show's over with when somebody dies. That's way over the line. But well, I'm glad that you shut that one down and it didn't happen, because that's out there, man.
Yeah, I turned down the shotgun with rock salt, and then Kevin pitched an idea for another stab spot at Carnage Cup 9, which was, I believe, in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and this time he wanted me to stab Spider with like a pocket knife, and it wasn't the point of the stab. I knew I could stab him and still be safe like I did the first time, but it was the point that on this one I wanted Saw 3 to be almost like a statement that, hey, we can go out there and not use power tools or not use the stupid weapons and still put on a great match. And to this day, I still like that Saw match better than any of the other ones.
Right, so how many Saw matches has there been total now?
Let's see. Saw 4 was Carnage Cup 10. Then we had the 2 out of 3 Saw match at Carnage Cup 11. And then at Angel of Death tournament, there was Saw Legacy. So there's been 6.
Yeah, completely lost you again, man.
There's been 6 of them.
6, okay. And so, I know you're getting ready, you've announced recently that, you're getting ready to do your last deathmatch tournament. So, I mean, the Saw matches with you and Spider, it's really going to be you guys, legacy, I think, going on. And, I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, is there anything you wish you could go back and add to the Saw series that you wish you would have done that you guys didn't get the chance to do, or talk to yourself?
I wished for Saw Legacy, which was at the Angel of Death tournament, I wished, Spider would have been able to wrestle that show. It wasn't like down in the other people that was in that match, because the match was crazy. It had, it had some good stuff in it. I just think it was, compared to the other ones, it was just a major letdown. And, when you look at the match, Saw Legacy, it just doesn't match up with the other ones at all.
Right, because, it's kind of like having the Saw movie without Jigsaw. It's like, it's not necessarily a bad movie, but it's not the Saw you're accustomed to.
Yeah.
I get that.
And, that was it. Like, all the other Saws, I loved. Like, the only regret about Saw 4 was, like, I was completely wasted. Like, it still looked good, me getting my ass whooped for, like, 20 minutes, but I was probably 9 out of 10 wasted for that match, so I didn't remember a lot.
Right.
And honestly, that was probably the drunkest I was ever for a match. Like, I wasn't so bad that, I wasn't in control of what I was doing out there, but, like, when it came to remembering the match, I did not. Of course, I did suffer a concussion during the match as well, but it wasn't because of, that either.
Right. So there's a good chance you might not remember the match regardless based on that concussion. So.
But yeah, I mean, the Sauls will probably forever be my legacy, and the fans. Even though there's been so many of them, the fans still keep asking about them. Like when we recently said something about Carnage Cup 12, someone has already said, is there going to be a Saul match?
Yeah, I mean, they've become synonymous with Carnage Cup. They kind of go hand in hand. It's kind of like, it's kind of like for years where it's like, okay, WrestleMania, so who's Undertaker going to wrestle in the street match? That's kind of what this has become. It's like, well, if it's Carnage Cup, we got to have a Saul match, and they got to up the ante from what they did before.
Yeah.
And so, how was that going into each one of those? Like for you and Spider, like how did you handle the pressure of knowing, like, well, we've got to live up to what we've done before, and we've got to up the ante without freaking killing ourselves?
I think the ante for the second one. I was the most worried for the second one because I shouldn't have been in the ring at that point yet. I shouldn't have been cleared. If there was any kind of like medical team that could have examined me, I would have never cleared for Carnage Cup 8 because of my leg. I was not ready to bump. I just wasn't physically ready for that. But I literally did that match for Saul 2, or I did the show for Saul 2. But, Saul 3, like, I felt like I was in the best condition of my life at that point. So especially me, I was like, we're going to go out there and steal this show. And, I thought we did. Carnage Cup 10, that was the 4-way with Spider, Bryant, and Josh. I was a little bit more skeptical on that one because, now we're adding 2 more people into the match with, crazy gimmicks. And, you got to really trust people whenever you're messing around with razor wire in the first place. So, that one was probably a little bit more on edge and nerves being, especially for that one. Carnage Cup 11, when we did the 2 out of 3, I really don't think there was anything on edge about that one until we got to that third fall. Because, all matches were separated that day. The third one, me and Spider were completely fucked up. We were messed up. I broke my ribs in the first one. Spider has not wrestled since that day, so that shows you how messed up he was.
Yeah.
And like literally in the back, we talked before we went out there. We were like, let's just go out there, do a short, quick match, basically mail it in because we were so fucked up and we were going to go home. We did not even do that. We went out there and still put on a killer fucking match. Couldn't bump as good as what we, normally do, but, if the fans truly appreciate what we did that day and know how much pain we were in that finals, they would respect us a little bit for that one.
Absolutely. So I guess this is the big question that I'm wanting to ask on this, and I'm trying to turn the tables on your interview show and make this me interviewing you. But I guess the thing I've always wondered is what motivates guys to do this? What motivates guys to do death matches? Because, I'm not speaking out of school or revealing any secrets when nobody's getting rich off this shit. People get paid more than they do a regular match, obviously, but a lot of times it doesn't cover all the medical bills that come along with it, and missed work, and a lot of things that are, after the fact. But what motivates you? Because you've even retired and now come back to do it again. So what motivates you to go out there and put yourself through what it requires to do a death match?
I would say what motivated me the most, and this is just me, not anybody else, but it was all the hate that I received. I was probably especially after the stab. I was one of the most hated wrestlers here in the South, and probably all over the U.S., honestly, but, they hated me so much. So it was my motivation to go out there and just do it and try to, put on a better match than some of these East Coast and, CZW guys and Mid-South guys and, like the West Coast guys. I wanted to try to do the crazier stuff. And honestly, that was my motivation, was to just try to top what everybody else was doing. Now, over the years, my money has gradually went up to a good level. And, Kevin don't want to talk about that. But, like, after I retired now, like I've said, I've mentioned this before. The only reason I came back is because Kevin was in a tight spot that night, and Peter B needed a damn opponent. They had all those weapons made up that were not going to get used because they were crazy ass weapons like razor wire and stuff like that. So all these people spent this time making this stuff. No one was going to use it, and I was just like, and of course I said it, pay me, and I'll do it. So then that got my arm itching a little bit. Hey, I can hopefully wrestle some of these younger guys that I didn't get a chance to before I retired, which is what I'm doing now. And once I knock these names off the list, I'm going back into hibernation again.
I agree. So, has there ever been, because I can only imagine, I've told my wife driving back to these things a few times, geez, I can only imagine what it's like for these guys the next day when they get out of bed, and it's all you can do to stand up on there. Was there any times where you got up that next day and you're like, the hell with this, I'm done with this, and then had to kind of psych yourself back up in the months in between to decide to come back? Was there ever one you're like, you know what, this is crazy, I'm not doing this shit anymore? And then, of course, a few days it wears off, you're feeling better. But was there ever a time you were ready to retire sooner than what you actually did?
There wasn't a time when I retired. The only time that I had that kind of attitude was actually when I went through my first training. And, they pummeled me with bumps. They beat the shit out of me. And, on my way back with Talon Sorrells and my wife, I was like, no, that ain't for me. I ain't doing it. And then, at this time, I was doing backyard. But I was like, I ain't going to do that. And, we didn't train again for a while. But now the only time that I got hurt so bad during wrestling, besides when I broke my leg, but when I broke my leg, I cut a promo right there on the floor saying, hey, I'm going to be back at Carnage Cup 8, blah, blah, blah. And, I put myself over while I'm laying on the damn floor, bleeding my ass off. But at Carnage Cup 8, when I did that backbreaker on those 2 chairs, that fucked me up worse than anything else ever has. On the way home, I was immediately just getting stiff, in my back. I could not move. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't turn. That was the worst ever.
Wow. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's usually things like that don't look as brutal and aren't as, easy as far as a lot of the weapons that get made and match concepts. That a lot of times that's the stuff that's worse on your body than even the getting cut and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I've never had honestly, I've never had a cut so bad that I was I'm done. Because hell, at Carnage Cup 10, it's pretty much healed up now. You can still see where the chunk of finger got cut out of my finger from the razor wire. You remember when I got thrown face first into it? That damn chunk of skin was dangling from my damn hand. But I wrapped it, and a few days later it done healed. But that's probably the worst piece of meat that's ever hanged from my damn body.
Wow. So how much did it mean to you when you finally won that Carnage Cup up there in Jasper?
You know what? It meant the world to me. It really did, because so many people never gave me the opportunity to win a tournament. They never even, I've always been considered the underdog, period. So everybody, that year, honestly, I think everybody thought it was going to be Corpse year or Spider or Bryant Woods. Nobody gave me a chance in hell to win that tournament that year. And I've always kept things so quiet, even with my family. My wife did not know I was winning that Carnage Cup.
Hey, can you still hear me, John?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dropped out on me again. That was the first Carnage Cup that I was ever backstage for, and I don't know how much of this, Kevin's discussed with you or whatever, but I gained a lot of respect for Kevin that weekend. It's because I don't know how much you know about it, but guys were politicking to knock you out of winning that thing and politicking to get themselves to win that tournament, both days. Like, I've seen countless guys pulling him aside and being like, oh, John can win later, man. I really need to go over in this, because of that. I got this one coming up and all that. And, Kevin stuck to his guns, and he's like, no, that's been the plan going in. John's winning. He's done this, he's done that. He's going to win. And I was proud of him, because, some of those guys were, quote unquote, names in the deathmatch community and help control a lot of things. And so I was like, it's going to be interesting to see if he sticks to his guns, or if, he pulls John aside, like, well, next year, man, this guy wants it, blah, blah, blah. But, man, it wasn't for people's lack of trying. Like, my God, people were politicking so hard to try to get to win it, like, right up until, like, the end of the second day. And it's like, I had no idea it was like it was like that. And I don't know, maybe it wasn't like that in every tournament, but good Lord, people were trying their damnedest to politic their way into winning it right up to the very end when you did.
Yeah, like, I've heard a million stories about, like you said, the politics that was behind the scenes. And, I definitely had some friends in the back that, fed me these stories. And, I lost some respect for some of the people in the back. And, I've never, said their names. And, I've never repeated any of the stories that I've ever heard, because, I'm not like that. But, yes, I've heard countless stories of, what happened behind the scenes that night, all the way up to, two of the guys supposed to screw me out of the main event, like literally screw me out of it. So, yeah, I've heard those.
I figured you did, if not for him, because I knew there was plenty of guys back there you were friends with that was hearing and seeing this shit. And then, yeah, man, that was the thing, too, is like, there were a couple of guys who were threatening to run in on the main event. And I was like, there's no way these guys are going to do this. And then they're out there hugging you and congratulating you, trying to cut promos, which is just, that's all about them trying to make it about them and still get themselves over even though you won. And, I lost a hell of a lot of respect for a few different guys who were back there talking all this stuff and, I'm going to hit the ring and blah, blah, blah. And they hit the ring all right, kiss your ass and shake your hand, which I thought was, was pretty funny. But, I was happy for you, because I knew you had put yourself through hell to get there and earn that. And I was glad nobody was able to politic you out of it.
Yeah, like, I'll tell you this, Spider knew about it. He told me, if something went wrong during the match to, get to him immediately. Spider wasn't going to let it happen. Like, Spider sometimes, he don't remember stories either. Like, you might ask him and he might not even remember it, because he, for the love of God, Spider does not remember a lot of stuff when you talk to him. And the ref was another one that really kept me, So the referee, kept me in the loop as well. So, I was properly informed. But, obviously I wasn't told any names. So,
yeah.
But, yes, I was aware of it. And, if you've noticed, I've never been in the ring with said guys since that show as well.
Right. Well, can't blame you for that. But so you mentioned in the beginning about softcore. So as a deathmatch guy, what was your opinion of all the softcore silliness?
It didn't bother me really. Like, I would say that I'm more of a fan of the softcore than I am of, like, the pure comedic wrestling. Like, some of the Shakara stuff,
yeah,
I'm not a fan of. Like, everybody knows how I feel about Orange Cassidy. I can't stand the gimmick. I really can't. The softcore, I did not have a problem with, because even after the Softcore Cup 1 tournament, I told Kevin, I was like, if you do another one, I want to be in it. Now, obviously, when Kevin put me in the Softcore Cup 2, it ended up getting a little bit more hardcore. And that wasn't because of me. That was Kevin's idea. He was like, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this and this and this. And I was like, well, whatever. It's supposed to be softcore, but, hey, you're the promoter. Whatever.
Yeah. It's, it's funny. I don't know how many people know this, but, and, Kevin enough to, I'm sure you've experienced this on a few different occasions. But, so we were in the dressing room. I want to say it was the Invasion of the Ubermenschen show over in Jasper. It's the one where it was hotter than Nine Hells up in there. I think that's the right show.
Yeah, it was in the same building that Carnage Cup 10 took place in, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
The weird green building. And so, me and Kevin and Jeremy Flint, a.k.a. Ronnie Jenkins, and Drew, a.k.a. Nacho Butcher, a.k.a. Kosher Chef, and a few others were sitting around there getting ready, and yeah, how you do. I mean, somebody, and I don't even know who said it first. I'm going to give Flint credit just because, saying, it would be funny, instead of hardcore, what if we did softcore? And, Drew's like, oh, yeah, we could do, instead of barbed wire, we'll do, bubble wrap. And then somebody's like, oh, yeah, and then we do this. Oh, we could have this character, and blah, blah, blah. And it was one of those things, just laughed about it. This is just something you just BS about in the dressing room. And didn't think anything else of it. And like a day or two later, I get a message from Kevin, hey, man, we're doing softcore. I'm like, what? We were just BSing around. He's like, no, I think that'll get over, man. And next thing I know, it's a real thing. It's something that started out as just a joke. Oh, hey, wouldn't it be funny if, manifested itself into, now 2 tournaments, a belt, and all the other stuff that, that went on. And I always kind of wondered if and I'm sure some of them did. You said you were cool with it, but I'm sure some of the deathmatch guys, kind of took it as a slap in the face. And I was always kind of, and I'd be interested to hear your take on this. And Kevin, I'm not speaking out of school. Lord knows Kevin knows how I feel about everything to a fault, but I've always felt weird about having the softcore matches on like a Carnage Cup show or a straight up death match show, or the flip side of that, having death matches on a somewhat regular show or a somewhat comedy / softcore show or whatever. Like, and that's always been my big thing with Kevin. I've always fought him on. It's like, man, you can't go to these towns advertising the Armstrongs and Jimmy Golden, and these folks show up at the building thinking they're going to see old school wrestling, and then you give them Jeremy dressed up like Hulk Hogan and Drew dressed up like a chef in a comedy match, and then they get their old school match with Mike Jackson, but then you got a death match right in the middle of it, and then you got, it just don't work. Like, you got to cater to somewhat of one audience. Like, I don't know. I've always felt like that's kind of where things went south on some of these shows that drew kind of big. You had too many different styles going on at once, and I believe in different genres of wrestling. God knows I do. But man, like some of those shows, I try to put myself as a fan in the audience who just bought a ticket thinking, hey, I'm coming to a wrestling show in BFE, Alabama, and sitting back going, what am I watching right now? Like, there's people dressed up like an ape and Michael Myers and the Nation of Defecation and all this craziness. Like, I wish I could get the name and number of some of those people afterwards and interview them and be like, so what were you thinking as you were watching this show? so what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, yeah, when you set up any kind of regular show, if you're going to put the death matches on there, it's got to be the main event, so you can make these people aware of it. So if they don't like it, they can leave, definitely.
Right.
Now, the softcore, I really don't have like a output on that. Like, as a fan, I'm pretty sure if I went to see an old school match or an old school show and there's some random softcore stuff in there, yeah, I'm going to be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely any kind of specialty match should definitely be at the end. And, honestly, with the legends and stuff like that, I know a lot of them usually like to be main event, but, if you're going to put specialty stuff on the show, they should go out there first, hype up that crowd.
Yeah, I think the most level booked show was like that Kellyton show where he had like Mike Jackson and them open the show and the crowd was super hot, and then you built to like the cage match at the end that had some of the craziness to it, and people they've seen what the old school people had came and seen what they came to see, if that's what they came to see, and they had the option to leave or whatever the case may be. But I thought booking the Softcore Cup 2 in a bar was, perfect for that whole scene. I mean, obviously it didn't work out the way any of us wanted it to as far as that went. But I thought that was the perfect place to hold that kind of show.
Now, see, you brought it up, so this is where I want to dig in your mind. Softcore Cup 2, like, they consider it one of the most controversial shows in Deep South history, not just because of the Triple X match with Effie, but you were there that night with the damn New Religion. I was the only one of the New Religion that was behaving that night, but White Lightning and Punk Rock Kid was out there in every match, fucking shit up, and you hated them, right?
Yes, I wanted to punch them, and I've never lived vicariously through anybody more in my life than when the Hermit Crab knocked the one on his ass out in the crowd was just tremendous.
Like, I know so much shit got started. Terry Houston almost beat the shit out of him in the back, I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was just, I don't know. It was a surreal night for me that night. And, I was just happy to win the Softcore Cup too, as well. I was happy about that. But, everything else, like you said, everything else that was supposed to have happened that night, it was just kind of off track from the beginning. And them two doing what they did almost caused a few fights. Hell, Little Donnie actually got into a fight with White Lightning on the hard cam.
And I don't feel bad. You can hear me on the commentary telling him, go do it. Like, go, Donnie, get him. And he dove off the stage onto him. So I'm not going to lie. Like, me and Kevin have gone round and round about this show. And so one of my best friends, Neil Taylor, I brought him down there to do commentary. And like, everybody there was, Neil's like, what in the hell did you bring me? Like, what the fuck is this? But, like, I hated that show. I'm not going to lie. I've told Kevin this. It ain't anything before. Like I say, me and him has had some pretty heated discussions about it because obviously I wasn't happy with my commentary because if you listen to the commentary, I didn't hide it at all that I was not happy about the show. It was where things went sideways right out of the gate is like he wanted me there like 3 or 4 hours early to take promos. And then because there was no crowd, we delayed the show like another 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
So the show finally starts. I'm irritated because I'm 5 hours from home almost, and we were driving back that night because we couldn't afford a hotel. And where the hell would you have stayed out there in the middle of BFE anyway? So I'm already pissed off. This show has been delayed for 3 or 4 hours, and there's still not more people there than there was 3 hours prior. And then we bumble-fucked around for 15 minutes waiting for them to play the right music, which really got me in a freaking lather at that point. And then just all the hardcore crap he added to it. I'm like, so this is a softcore cup, but we got tacks and Legos and shit out there that don't necessarily fit in. And then those two clowns out there at ringside through the whole thing, and just, I don't know. And nothing against you, but I was like, Kevin, I like John, but John is the deathmatch king of Out of Gate Deep South. Like, he is your most homegrown deathmatch guy. Like, why is he winning the Softcore Cup? Like, that doesn't help the division or his reputation either way. I'm like, why don't you just win it? Of course, I said that, and he's won every fucking thing since. I mean, well, not him, but, his good friend, Boris Dookie. So I guess I messed up saying that, but I don't know, man. Like, that whole sex debacle thing, and of course, Kevin insisted the next day, oh, this is going to be viral, this is going to be everywhere. And I'm like, probably so, and I don't like that my voice is behind it because it's probably going to be quite embarrassing for all of us, which it turned out to be nothing. There was a little dust up on Facebook for a couple of days. White Mike and them got all huffy about some stuff, but other than that, it fizzled out and was never really spoke of again. As far as like what he was thinking it was going to be, like national news or something. But I don't know, man. Like I thought the first tournament played into the concept perfectly, and then the second one was just a deranged bar show that really didn't play to the gimmick at all, and just. The drunk guy was kind of funny. The comedian guy was okay, but it's just, I don't know, man. Like, I left there, I was like, holy once it came out, I watched it, and actually Neil came over and we sat and watched it together, and he's like, yeah, we was pretty rough, weren't we? I was like, yeah, I didn't realize. I'm like, but shit, dude, we've been sitting there, like, we've been sitting there for 6 hours before this thing even starts. Like, yeah, it was, whew.
Dude, I'll be honest with you.
Experience.
Anytime I've ever listened to you on commentary, and like you're, especially like during the $10 wrestling days, like whenever you were messing with Storm, Prophet, you know, the Softcore Cup, like I've always enjoyed your fucking commentary. Like when you fuck with people on commentary, it's good. I love it.
I've gotten a ton of feedback, like on, especially the ones that are on like the $10 shows, you know, both on the Hotspots network. So I've had a bunch of random people that'll add me on Facebook and be like, oh, hey, I love your commentary on $10 wrestling. And you know, I'm sure you've heard from Kevin probably, I don't know, but you know, Seth from Hotspots, you know, Seth Bowman pulled me and Tim aside before the second one. Was like, y'all were way too mean in the first one. You're too mean-spirited. You know, y'all need to, it needs to be more lighthearted like Colt and Marty. You need to be like them. I'm like, you guys already have Colt and Marty. We're not, I mean, I said, I know with the name to some degree, yeah, he's ripping off $5. Like, but I'm not here to be a carbon copy of Colt and Marty. You've already got them. If you want this to be like Colt and Marty, then Kevin would have called Colt and Marty, but he didn't. I said, he paid us, this is what he told us he wanted, and that's what he's getting because he's a man, don't take no buzz. And yeah, come to find out, I guess there was because I always figured, because like after that first one, you know, Tim's legit. You know, for people listening to this who don't know, Tim Statham is a legit stand-up comedian who was a touring comedian. He never had anything to do with wrestling before he showed up at $10 Wrestling. Me and him had never met each other in our lives before that first one. And I was quite proud of how that show turned out, because you wouldn't know that me and him had never met each other before the show started that night. You know, we had a lot of fun, but after it was over with, he's like, man, you know, we were pretty rough on some of these people. Are we going to have to see them again? I'm like, yeah, next show. And so he was kind of scared. I'm like, look, man, I've been doing this for years. I'm like, I've said some very foul shit about a lot of people. I said, not a one of them's ever come up and confronted me about it. I said, I'm not saying I'm any kind of badass. I mean, most of them could probably come knock me out if they wanted to. I'm like, but nobody's ever said anything. I said, I don't know if they just don't watch them or they just understand that's my role. That's what Kevin wants me to do. I said, but nobody's ever said anything. I've never had a cross word about it. And that next show, that second $10 show, like Tim had a gun in his car and mace in his pocket and got about half lit before he got there because he was worried that people were going to confront him about things that he had said on the first DVD. And it come to find out, I've never been told directly, but I have been told like second hand, and I assume because they deleted me off Facebook, it's true, like, apparently Prophet and Storm got like really heated about some of the shit we said on there, but like by anyone, so
yeah,
it is what it is.
I always enjoyed the commentary from $10, and like the Softcore Cup, the Softcore Cup 2, I loved it because like you hate I could feel your hate for punk rock and White Lightning.
I'm sorry, after you said Softcore Cup, it dropped out. I didn't hear anything you just said.
I felt your hate for, you know, the New Religion that night. And I don't know if you've ever looked into or heard this yet, but did you hear about that night? There was that ladies' match. One of the ladies actually said she was drugged in the back. Did you know about that?
I heard that on your show, and that was the first time I had ever heard that. I discovered, come across your shows on YouTube and started listening to them, and I come across that one and heard that, and of course I messaged Kevin, and I'm like, did you know that? And he's like, I didn't know it until I heard it on there like you did. You know, John mentioned it to me, he said, before then, he said, that's the first I've ever heard of that. And I was like, holy crap, that's a whole other level.
And, you know, I didn't hear about it, you know, I didn't hear about it for years afterwards, and it was at another wrestling show when some people were in the back talking about it, and, you know, they know her personally. And, you know, they were like, they asked me if punk rock was going to be there, and I was like, nah, he really don't travel with me no more. And, he was like, oh, I'm going to beat his ass the next time I see him. And I was, that guy, I was like, wow, what's going on? Because, me and Punk Rock, we used to hang out pretty regular as just normal people, So I was like, what happened? And they went into the store, and I'm just like, wow. I was like, that's random.
Wow. Yeah, that was a whole other level. Like, I was annoyed, from just a wrestling perspective of like, why are these guys wandering around ringside and trying to make the show about them? But I mean, that's just difference of, wrestling, wrestling opinion or, wrestling whatever. But that drugging somebody's drink, now that's a whole other level. I mean, he needed his ass whooped for that, which it's a wonder Terry didn't beat him at the end of it, because like right before we left to go home, man, Terry was all up in his face, like just completely beside himself, pissed. And I understood why. I felt much the same way, but I didn't feel like, as a commentator, it wasn't my place to go get in his face about any of the dumb shit he'd done all night, Yeah.
Terry at the end of the night, he apologized to me because, those were my guys there that night. But, I told him, I was like, hey, there's no hard feelings between me and you. I love Terry. I still love Terry to death. I was like, you did what you did. It's none of my business. That's none of my business, literally. I was like, my feelings towards you, same. I love you to death.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, guys are your guys, but when they step out of line and they do stuff like that, you can't just blindly take up for them. They go step in a pile of shit. It's up to them to clean it up or handle it.
So you also was recently at the newest IWA show, famously known as Shit Apocalypse. Did you do some commentary for that?
Yeah, I did. I arrived a little late. I arrived just after the slap fights.
Oh.
So I got to call a handful of the matches. My wife was on the verge of having a heat stroke, so we had to leave right before your match, unfortunately. I've got to see highlights of it on the Murder, Death, Kill site, and I'm looking forward to seeing the DVD because I've heard nothing but good things. But yeah, she was about to fall out because, oh my God, we were sitting in the shade over there doing commentary, and I cannot imagine how hot it was for you guys out there in the middle of that ring at like 4 in the afternoon on one of the hottest days we've had thus far in July. That's brutal in itself, not to mention just all the crazy stuff that you guys were putting yourself through. So lots of respect for you to be able to get through that, because God dang, it was hot.
Dude, I was sunburned going, because we were out there all day. I was out there from 11, setting up, helping out with stuff. So I was sunburned going into that match. I know I told Kevin just to have some bottles of water around the ring. Just so, if we got thirsty, we could drink something. Hell, they kept throwing water on us the whole damn match just to keep us going. Which was appreciated, but, I know someone looked at the video and they were like, what the hell's going on with the water? I was like, it's 100-something degrees, okay?
Exactly. Oh, yeah, Kevin will never be another summer show for Deep South, at least not outdoors anyway.
No.
You got my vote for that, buddy.
I loved the location, but, Lord, yeah, it was the wrong time for that.
Well, hopefully, everything comes together in December for Carnage Cup, and at least the heat factor, won't be, because it's hard to prepare for a match in that kind of heat just to go out and wrestle a match, but I mean, much less when you go figuring in all the craziness of a death match, and then you're about to have a heat stroke and trying to stay hydrated to some degree. Adds a whole other wrinkle to the that whole experience.
Yeah, and then, between me and Cody, we started getting, especially me, I got tore up, cut up, I was bleeding pretty damn bad, to tell you the truth. It's been a minute since I've bled that bad.
Right.
But, hey, I did it for the money. And, Cody was one of the names that I put on my list that I wanted to wrestle, when I came back out of retirement. And, a lot of people said that this was his, breakout match. So I'm glad to have been part of that. So And that's one thing that I think that I don't get credit for sometimes is just being an in-ring talent. A lot of people consider me like a, what do they call it, a spot junkie or spot wrestling. You know, I can definitely put on a match if I want to. What do you think about that, Gene?
Man, as soon as you said people think of me, like everything dropped out. I didn't hear another word until you said, "What do you think of that?"
I had a feeling that's what it was because it went completely silent. I said a lot of people don't consider me a spot junkie, and I think that I can get in there and put on a great match without being the AKA spot junkie people think I am.
I think so. I think you've proven that. And I'm not just saying this because this is your show, and I didn't just say that on Facebook the other day because you made the joke about I'd never paid you a compliment. I've come to respect you a lot over the years for what you've contributed out of Be Deep South, and the fact that you've gone out and done whatever's needed done, whether it was going out and doing crazy spots and death matches. Or I don't think, and I'm not going to reveal it here for kayfabe purposes, for what little bit's left of kayfabe, but you've done a lot of stuff under hoods and different things that people aren't even necessarily aware of in other types of matches, whether it's softcore matches or regular matches or quote-unquote comedy matches or whatever the case may be. A lot of these shows, man, where you've gone out and had to do a lot of crazy stuff in the death matches, you've already wrestled once, sometimes twice,
Yeah.
and even been at ringside in hot suits and masks and shit like that. Like, at the end of the day, I think that you've given more to the company out of Be Deep South / $10 Wrestling / LXW / the different incarnations it's taken over the years. But ultimately, it's all Deep South in my mind. If Kevin's promoting it. But I don't think you get enough credit for how much work you've put in. And then, like I say, setting up, helping, just across the board, promoting the show, helping promote the shows, get out there and getting the word out. You haven't gotten near enough credit for what you have done for the company as a whole. And I don't think you get enough credit for being able to go out there and have matches that doesn't necessarily have to involve weapons and deathmatch stipulations and crazy spots.
Like, I know you were there for the LXW. LXW, besides like the Uber Invasion, which was in Tennessee, none of the other LXW shows had death matches on them. So, we had to do, the funny matches or the specialty matches. And I think I put LXW on my back and, I carried the damn thing.
Yeah, I don't think anybody can argue that, or anybody with any knowledge of it, or any background of it. I don't think anybody can dispute that. That's absolutely true, and and that's what I say. That's one thing. One of the things I respect about Kevin is he doesn't forget that type of things. He always remembers the people who are loyal to him, the people who have done for him. He makes sure and does for them, and he's always made sure that. Whatever decisions he made, whatever directions he was taking, he always considered, how that would affect you and your character and what it would mean for you.
I mean, another thing about the Softcore Cup too, I don't think I've ever really even said this anywhere else before, but obviously Kevin said he was putting me over that night. But as you know, there wasn't even a trophy that night. It was just It was just, hey, you won it. But if there was actually a trophy that night, even though I was scheduled to win it, I was going to put Kilo over, just between, me and him. I didn't even tell him this yet. But if there was going to be a trophy that night, I was going to put Kilo over because, I like Kilo. But knowing that there wasn't a trophy, to me that was, it was kind of, hey, I'm winning it, but there's not a trophy, so I was just like, yeah, I'll go ahead and just win it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of it, it's cool that you won it. It adds another dimension to your, and I even mentioned it in your promo that night that we did before the show, that it kind of carried you to both ends of the spectrum. John Rare, up to that point, been known as the most stabs people, all these different, accolades. And so they interviewed you to go out there and show that you could do the softcore. And like you said, it wasn't your idea to implement the hardcore elements that were there. I'm sure people who watched you were like, oh, Rare couldn't do a match without throwing in his hardcore shit. But that was all Kevin's doing, but I don't think it hurt anything. Like, I don't think anybody popped the DVD out with, oh, bullshit, that's not softcore, I'm not watching this,
Yeah, and I'm pushing Kevin. I really have. I've mentioned it before. I'm pushing Kevin for a Softcore Cup 3. I voted. Like, people have hated on the 2 tournaments, but as many people that's hated on it, the same amount of people have bought the damn DVD and, voted to see it.
Board, but I think there's still some things we can do with that concept.
And trust me and Kevin had a brain session the other night. I've came up with a hell of an idea. Obviously, I'm not going to reveal nothing about that. 2020, well, no, this is 2020. 2021 will roll around, and you're definitely going to see some new stuff in IWA Deep South, and I can't wait for that.
Well, I'd like to hear what it is, because when he's free, I'm not. When I'm free, he's not. But I'm excited to hear what that's going to be, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, I'll tell you this: as soon as we're done with this interview, I will hit you. I'll just tell you immediately. As soon as I get done recording, I will tell you what it is, and I'm pretty sure you're going to like it.
Awesome, love it.
So, do you have any final words that you want to bring to us right now, Gene Jackson?
I just, again, like I told you online, I've respected the fact that despite, you and Spider and some of the IWA Deep South guys have took a lot of crap, from, like say the East Coast bunch, a lot of the Northern guys, they crap on anything Southern, especially, people that are somewhat competing with them, I guess, on the deathmatch scene. But, you guys have always held your head high and just went out there and just tried to, try to outdo them in the ring and be more innovative in violence that you brought. And, deathmatch wrestling wouldn't be a thing in Alabama and the Southeast pretty much if it wasn't for IWA Deep South and you guys that helped keep making it happen. So I think that's cool, and I think that there's a lot more innovative things coming from IWA Deep South. Not only the upcoming Carnage Cup, but some other concepts. These slap fights are fun. We may have finally found Big James's specialty. He may have finally found the way he's going to become a superstar, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. I just hope everybody sticks around and keeps following IWA Deep South, because I think there's some really cool stuff coming in the next year or so. Yeah,
I had to become the commissioner. I had to control Kevin down, tone him down a little bit, But yeah, me and him, when we get together, we put these ideas together. I think we really come up with some really good stuff. And Big James and me have been friends since like 2006. He actually went to train one day with, I'm pretty sure you may know him, Terry Teague.
I know the name. I've never met the guy. I've heard all the notorious stories about him, but I've never had the fortune or misfortune, whichever way you want to call it, of actually meeting the gentleman.
Yeah, there's a lot of negative stories about him. Like, he found us off of, I wouldn't say he found us off the internet, because, this is when we were doing Backyard, but he invited us up to do a pro day and train, and he was like, oh, y'all wrestle, I know it, blah, 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 blah. We paid to train, and then, he was, go ahead and pay, but the promoter, he's going to like you, so he'll give you the money back and you'll wrestle. We didn't wrestle. We didn't get our money back. And, that was the same story where I told you, they beat the shit out of us during training, and I was like, fuck this, I ain't going back.
Right.
But, I think Big James may have finally found something that he's going to be damn good at, because if it wasn't for the penalties, I think he would have dominated the day.
Oh, yeah. I love the promo video for his slap fight with Solo Cup. That sold me on the whole concept. When Kevin first mentioned it to me, I was like, I don't know, man. And I saw that video of him slapping the stop sign. I messaged him back. I'm like, all right, I'm in, man. I got to.
Dude,
very sick that I didn't get there in time to Solo calling for all the penalties and stuff. I was like, come on, man. I mean, to his credit, he stood there and took it. I figured after he took the first one, man, he would have folded up like a tent and been like, okay, you win. So I will give him that much props, but still, penalties. Nobody wants to see a match of any sort end with penalties.
I gave him 2 slaps. I said that he would only last 2 slaps and would be out. So he did last. I gave him compliments on that. But that whole promo with Big James, I choreographed that whole damn video.
I assume so. When I watched it, I assumed so.
And, stuff. We're supposed to be filming another one soon, and it's going to be just as epic and good as that one. I guarantee you that.
Tremendous. I will help spread it around for sure.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this was John Rare with my very special guest, Gene Jackson. If you like it, hit the like and subscribe button and share away. Until next time,